Renewal Agency this Monday, February 8th, 2016, 4:00 p.m. I want people to remember that this meeting is a work session only and generally does not include public comment. There will be future opportunities for public comment at regular Urban Renewal Agency meetings. For roll call, we'll go around the table. Mr. Sprague?
Roger Sprague.
Don Williams. Dick Anderson.
Richard Allen, City Attorney.
Ron Chandler.
Allison Robertson.
Kurt Olson. Kip Ward.
Kent Norikis.
Susan Waukee. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is submission of the audit statements, and it's not on.
Well, one of the last steps in our process of doing our audited statements is actually submitting it to the governing body. So we have posted the full audited statement on our website. I didn't include it in the packet because the city one has a lot of pages. But there are some communications from the auditor in your packet. The Urban Renewal received a clean audit, which means the auditors believe you can rely on your statements to make important decisions. And it was a good audit. We also submitting at the City Council, and our auditor will be here to make a presentation to City Council about the audit, and I was anticipating to answer any questions at that point because you're kind of constrained on time for this meeting. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Olson.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you we appreciate to be able to present this information at this kind of a workshop setting, so thank you for allowing us to do that. And we're here to discuss our 5-year capital plan. We have for many, many years kept it running 5-year capital plan going as a planning tool, and I think Ron Tierney developed the first spreadsheet for that when Excel was invented. So today we'd like to go over our 3 main funds. That would be the Urban Renewal General Fund, the Urban Renewal Construction Fund, and the Property Rehab Program Fund. And although they are separate funds, you'll see how they sort of are intertwined and how money moves between them. The first one I'd like to start with is the Property Rehab Fund, and we'll talk about this page here that looks like this. And to start with, there at the top, I just have some notes about it. We initially funded this program with $1.2 million. There are 41 properties have taken advantage of the program. 28 of those loans have been repaid. We have to date no loan defaults. So there are 13 loans that are currently on the books at approximately $380,000 in outstanding loans. The annual payback for those 13 loans is around $50,000 annually. Currently in the program, we have about $750,000. And I'm going to ask Allison if she would generally describe kind of the recent uptick in interest in those applications and the pending loans that we have.
So right now we have approved about $350,000 of loans, and we're anticipating a little more than $300,000 additional that have expressed interest, or we have an application in that's on hold for reasons of finishing other projects before we fully process their loan. So with those that are already approved and anticipated, then we figure we have about $75,000 available left in the fund. So if we go first come, first serve, and we've had a lot of interest, but it's not the right program or it's not the right timing for everyone. We did, once the 10 years from the 99 started happening and we were getting those 10-year payoffs, we realized there was this influx of money into the program again, and so we started doing some small media campaign. We did announcements at Bama and Chamber. We did the Friday Flyers for Chamber. We did some direct mail in 2013, 14, and 15. And then we also did direct mail to all the banks because we had worked with them in the past when we were talking about expanding the loan program. And when we added energy efficiency and business expansion, we had worked with the banks to make sure that we were working together instead of stepping on toes. So that's it for the loan program. For the grant program, we have $50,000 currently in that fund. We approved about $30,000 in grants, and we think that we'll probably have about $20,000 spoken for in the next year or two. So that fund has been good demand, good funding. We've had 2 loans to the college, the Small Business Development Center, which has directly impacted business owners and employees for businesses in the Urban Renewal District, classes and training.
So that's the good news, is that the program has been successful. People have been accessing it, especially since we brought in those 2 new programs, energy efficiency and the property, or the business development loans. But what you see there is we only have 1 loan available now, and we don't have any money in the grant program other than the 1 or 2 that we sort of anticipated coming in. For example, the downtown manager for the barrier merchants was one of those ones. So we've run that funding down to the point where that's probably about what to expect annually unless we refund the program. So when these loans are out with a 350 that's approved and a 320 that we've sort of anticipated, that we've talked to people about, and they're preparing an application. Once those are out and they're paying back, that should be about $100,000 annually that we'll get it back in payback. So then we'd be able to fund maybe a couple loans each year if we don't do any additional refunding. So we want to make that.
Excuse me. If it's a grant program, why are they paying it back?
Well, they're not. In the grant program, they're not. We just allocated about $50,000 in that grant program in order to give out grants.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So the grant program does not refund. It's only the loan program.
That's what I figured, but that didn't sound like that when you
Okay, sorry, no thanks.
Is there a way to, certainly not now, but at some point, can a spreadsheet on the types of these loans and the rehab loans? Do you keep track of if it was facade or a sign, or it'd be interesting out of the 41 to see the type, and maybe by year too, because.
Well, we can do that by year. We have all that information. I can just tell you, am I correct, that we've had 2 energy efficiency loans, and no one has taken out a business expansion loan yet. So that means 39 are the facades. We do have 1 business expansion loan anticipated.
And one of the facade improvement has been directly for signage.
Is that the one in Pepper City?
Yeah. And so so along with those lines is that when we put out that recent mailing to everybody in the district and said we now have these 3 new programs available, it generated a lot of interest, but it ended up generating it for the facade program because that program is a lot easier than the business expansion program. They have to deal with council of governments, and we haven't done one of those yet. So we're working on our first one on those. So just to let you know that our intention has always been that this program is creating an endowment for the future when urban renewal is gone. That this money, there should still be $1 million in this fund to continue to provide loans. It's not a fund that grows because there's 0 interest, and there are some fees associated with it. So it will gradually get smaller, but it will create an endowment so that this could go on for much longer into the future. Also, what we provided you with, you've seen it many times, is this toolbox idea. That's one of the things that if you decide to pump some new life, new funding into this program, and maybe that you want to pump a new program into the fund as well. I know some of you talked about some of those, for example, a youth entrepreneur program is one of the things in here. So that's something else that you might want to talk about.
Sure. The question on the fees eating up that money, is that something that can be worked into the loan programs of the borrower? Replenish that somehow? You can see a program that can go away just for fees.
We did do a portion of the closing fees so that those get rolled into the loan program. So that the fees aren't a very significant part of the program. Basically, the fees that we incur have to do with the free architectural services that we provide for each of our loans, and not everybody takes advantage of that.
We have a percentage.
I would guess 70%, 60 to 70% of the loans take advantage of the architectural.
I just want to try to find a percentage of the total amount. What is being nibbled away each year?
We can get that information. It's no more than $1,200 per loan. Okay. That's our limit. That's the services that we provide.
All right.
Okay, so therefore, the question before you is, do you want to put some additional funding into the program? However, before you answer that question, let's look at the rest of the funds so that you can see, so you can better help answer that question. So the next item that we're going to talk about is the one that looks like this slide, the purple lines in the spreadsheet. This is our Urban Renewal General Fund. The upper area of this spreadsheet, as you can see up on the wall where it's yellow, that's where you'll find personal services, material services, and those sorts of things. And then in the body of the spreadsheet is where the capital outlay is found. The middle purple column is where we've listed each of the projects that this fund provides funding for. And then it also, to the right of each of those, is a number in whatever column the year that we intend to build those things. So most of the projects that you see on that list obviously fall within the 15-16 budget year this year. And there are some that will carry over into the next year. For example, the $12,000 for the planning department to do the updated comp plan, and one more of those for the Nilscott neighborhood signs, concrete signs, and one more of those. That'll make 12 of those. So,
Madam Chair? Kurt, what on 2019-20, the three previous boxes then jumps from 50,000 to $1 million.
Yep.
What's the reason for the million? Is that sale of it?
Yep. I will get to that right now. I think. Yep, that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, so both of those yellow lines are in the revenue section. The top one, where you see $30,000 across the board, that represents the lease payment from the Lincoln City Cultural Center for the D-Lake School. And as you know, we are currently deferring that payment. However, that agreement expires in July. So if you extend that, as the agency can, then that funding would not be there. And the line below that shows the 50-50 and $1 million, those are property sales. And $1 million is obviously the 51st Street, and the other ones are just guesstimates for the other three properties that we've been talking about. So if those sell, then, and if those things happen, those revenue sources happen, then this fund is solvent through 2024 easily. And you can see that at the very bottom of the page, the very bottom corner, very far to the right. The very bottom line shows the ending balance each year. So you can see that this fund is solvent if the properties are sold and if lease payments are reenacted. If not, then we have operating issues in that.
You haven't anticipated the sale of the cultural center building then?
Not in this, no, I haven't.
That was part of our lease agreement with them, wasn't it?
They have, as I remember it, we just looked it up, and they have a 25-year option to purchase that building. I think, well, they have a 25-year option to lease the building.
Yeah. With the first right of refusal.
The first right of refusal may or may not still be current. There's a bunch of amendments and stuff. So we're not sure about that, but the original agreement with them is that they have the ability to lease it for 25 years.
But we are receiving the $30,000 per year.
No,
It's deferred.
It's been deferred for the last 3 years.
Is that stacking up? So someday there's a lump sum or what?
No, it was deferred until July, and then that deferment is over in July of this year.
Doesn't really mean waive.
Wait,
They don't have to pay us back.
yeah, correct. I just wait. Okay.
Wait, I think that's a better term.
Okay.
Yeah. Because deferred would seem to indicate that someday they got to pay that off.
No, I don't think there's any indication in the agreement that they have to pay it off. I think
Okay.
they were waiting. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So that's that. Okay. So the next fund.
Before we leave this one first,
Yeah.
Ocean Lake Planning Design, North 22nd, $120,000 budgeted this year for that.
Yes.
What's that consist of?
Okay, so where it says Northeast 22nd and it says a half, that means we paid for half of the project, and half of that cost was $120,000, and that was for the sidewalks
And the crosswalk
by
the school.
by Perry at 22nd Street on the highway.
Okay.
Public Works did the project, and we paid for half of the cost.
Okay. Thank you.
So if we move to the next fund, that would be the one that has the green bars in it. This is the construction fund. And most of the discussion that we're likely to have this afternoon will probably relate to this. On your sheets, if you see up there, so you know where I'm talking about, those projects up in that oval are your north end projects that we talked about that were decided upon in order to extend urban renewal. We talked about doing those projects so that you all have a list. In fact, that list is there. That's those projects that are considered to be those north end projects. And we have put those in, let's see, if I go to the next slide. Yeah, so we've put those in the years that we anticipate the construction to happen. The other thing that you want to note is that near the top is where that arrow points is our funding for in 2017-18. This is the $2,975,000 bond sale that we will make in that year. That will be our final funding bond sale of the agency, for the life of the agency. Let's see, what else? I need to point out a few more things. Okay, the next thing I need to point out is, so underneath the ocean, or the north end projects, we have the D-Lake undergrounding, and you'll see that number there. And then below that, then, are what we're referring to as the community vision projects. And those are just a variety of projects that you have seen, or other councils or agencies have seen through the years that haven't been completed yet. They're still in the books. We don't anticipate that we would ever complete all of them, but at least there's still some of them there that are still worthy of discussion. And you will see those on the page that has the blue street lamp. Yeah. So that's a list of those projects. And then we have some examples of those just to throw out there so you know what I mean. For example, the traffic signal here at City Hall. It's the only one that's hanging from wires. We've replaced all the rest of them. Either the Urban Renewal Agency, you have, or ODOT has replaced all of the traffic signals throughout town, except for the one in front of City Hall, and it's the one dangling on all of those wires. So that's the kind of projects that are still on the list. Obviously, ADA modifications, funding those. We have projects like this that are community projects, like the beach access in Color City to the bay. And we talked over the years, we hear many times about Lincoln City's garbage cans. Although that they're functional and work well, they could be updated. And so one of the projects you've probably seen across from Sambo's and US Mart, I think, is where we put the crosswalk there. We put in these garbage cans, garbage receptacles. They keep the weather out. You'll see the starfish, which is the logo for the Tacoma area. They seem like they've held up really well. They've been there about 4 or 5 years now, and they're not rusting. I think they're bolted down because they haven't been moved. And we haven't had any complaints from Public Works or anybody that we know that like them. So that's the type of things that are on this list that could be done if we had funding for it. I think that's the last of those. So then the thing to look at next is at the very bottom line of this spreadsheet. You'll see that next year we have anticipated in doing a few projects next year, and that about taps out that many revenues that we have in that fund until the following year, which is when we have that next bond sale, and then we have that list of projects, and then you can see that's it. That we do not complete all of our North End projects. We don't complete all of our community vision projects, because the funding just doesn't meet those. Our wish list, I guess. So that is that's the gist of those three funds that we have. Did you have anything you want to throw in here at this time? Okay. So then the number 2 question is going to be, amongst the North End projects that we talked about, the D-Lake undergrounding and the community vision projects, of having to choose based on available funding. In the past, like I said in the staff report, that's really never been a concern because we've always had huge carryovers. We're in the middle of our program. We're making, we were bringing in $2.5 million to $3 million a year annually. And when we did the under-levy program, we dropped that to $500,000. And then we just weren't able to fund those kinds of projects anymore. And in addition to that, we're getting into the end of our life. And so that's moving out. So those are the questions ahead of you. We've always just kind of said, hey, it's always trying to find consensus in a project. We can come up with all kinds of projects. If we get consensus, we can do them. And people would come in and go, well, why are you doing that? Why don't you do this? And we'd be able to say, well, we'll do yours too. Because this one has consensus. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the list. You can get consensus for your project. We have the ability to fund it. It's never been the issue of not having the funds. That's where we find ourselves. So I think that's the gist of my presentation on those 3 funds. And it was great to have a discussion about
where do we stand with the Salas senior lift station?
Okay, so it's listed as one of the projects in the North End, and it is in the year 2017. We've anticipated having enough funds to do the design, but we wouldn't have enough funds to do the construction that year or the following year. And the Salas and Force Wing, the same thing. There would be funding available to do the design, but not the construction, according to this plan that shows all the other projects that are scheduled. On the community vision projects, like it said down here near the bottom, we're only asking really that we can continue to fund about $250,000 of these kind of community vision projects that are still out there. And you can find a lot of these smaller projects with the numbers that we're talking about at the top of this spreadsheet. So.
Well, haven't we had some talk about that as a group? The LC?
Well, the discussion was to push it out, which just shows it does. You know, I mean, you're talking about out to 18, 19. Well past your lifetime.
Yeah.
But
that needs to be pushed out a lot farther than that.
Well, there's restraints in that. I mean, so what is the timing? This is when the money comes into play, available.
Right.
So then, I guess the question I think keeps asking is, if you delayed, hypothetically, if you delayed that project another year or two, what is the structure to handle that?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the critical projects at this point is the 50th Street lift station, getting that constructed, because that's needed currently. And that Salacy isn't imminent, right? But I can't give you a timeline. I can put somebody in the audience on the spot if you'd like to talk to them, but I know it's...
Well, no, I think we're agreeing with all that stuff. Mine is more of a gymnastics, is hypothetical. Yeah, if we don't need that pump, we can design it, but we want to delay the actual $1 million pump until development has come, which may be out a little further. Is there a way to hold those funds in some kind of abeyance so that when development meets need, we can pop it in using these funds?
Well, I can only tell you that if you were to drop one of those other projects, which you can't, I mean, if it's 50th Street, there are no funds to build unless you drop Lake Undergrounding, and even if you don't construct any of these.
I don't understand the way you said. The money's here, right? In the column.
I think the message.
The $1 million?
No, that's the expense.
Yeah, is the expense to.
I think the message that you're looking at is that if you go through 2018 and you build according to what is here, your remaining fund balance is $267,000. I'm sorry, $277,000.
Right.
That's all the money you have to work with. So in other words, if you were to try to do this project, you would have to come in 2019. You would have to come up with an initial $1.4 million from another resource.
Oh, okay. I've been misreading the column though. I thought it down. So all I have for that column is $277,000 is what you're telling me.
Right, correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the answer to your question is that if you do the projects that are associated with up through 2018, and you're looking for the Salacy project and both the two Salacys, whether it's in 2019 or sometime in the future, you'll have to find a different revenue source to pay for that other than urban renewal.
Right. The $150,000 and $60,000 is simply design budget.
Yeah.
And then the following year budget for the construction.
Yeah, and those are, best guess estimates. Yeah, we don't have a real number.
So that's your question, or answer is there isn't money to do it out there. Design it, but have it.
Could I ask a question, Kip? You probably said it before, but I'm not remembering. What was you seem to object to that?
Oh, I just didn't want to invest a lot of money into something that's going to be obsolete. Build this thing, you don't.
Oh, that's right.
We don't have demand for it.
Yeah,
you don't have demand for it. It sits there for 10, 15 years. And it's worth that.
Because we haven't really actually talked too much about Block B, of selling Block B and developing Block B.
Right. Where this one is.
So,
Yeah.
So I assume we're going to be out there.
Yeah, there may be new scientific stuff that negates a whole lot of the stuff that will go into this engineering, and it may be entirely different 15 years from now.
Well, and you can discount the property to the point where the developer would put it in.
Yeah.
If you give away $1 million, then give $1 million to put into the infrastructure.
I agree with Kent. It doesn't make sense to me to spend that money now when they'll just sit there and may never get used.
Like buying a new car, parking it on the street, and coming back 15 years later.
Yeah.
The car's not new anymore. You
That's
didn't
right.
drive it.
Exactly. That's the thing that worries me about the undergrounding project. We've done the engineering on that, and it sits there ready to go, but 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, that may be obsolete.
Well, it's here, 17, 18.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that if it didn't happen then, it happened at another time, then it's entirely possible that what we paid, we put $60,000 on engineering, I think, something like that.
So then our next expense on it will be like, I think it's $145,000 for the permit to put pipe together.
And we've already expended that money.
We've held off on that just in case.
But we have expended the engineering.
One question I can throw out to the audience. Am I correct that that's what Salicy was to fund, is only Block B, nothing that's currently built out?
Correct. I don't think it's Block B though, but it's above the basins that we have currently. Well, it's above Fernwood and the block above it, so it's really, when you get over the crest of that hill, it's almost beyond where the cul-de-sac is, anything above that crest. So where the cul-de-sac is, there is some property there that would be served by Salicy.
Okay, great, thank you.
And you wouldn't want to design a pump station, which are only good for a year or two, those pump station designs.
Okay.
Could that high-pressure system that we're doing on Voyage, could that be used in lieu of a pump station?
I mean, maybe in certain areas, certain pockets in there, but I suspect most of it would be gravity, and you would just need the one lift station to get it to 50th Street. Not kidding, one of these from the eye.
So another question. Not being familiar with urban renewal, having been with the process that's going on, I read your books that you put out, Ocean Lake, and it says reads all the goals. And the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 things that most people want is light. They want to eliminate light. But in speaking with you, urban renewal really has kind of a different definition maybe of light than the average guy that sees a building tipping because that's light. You're thinking more undergrounding and pipes and infrastructure.
Well, I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. That light can be deteriorating buildings, but it can be deteriorating infrastructure. It could be the lack of infrastructure. Light in an area, the ability for it to not develop the water and sewer out there. Maybe only one house can be built on 20 acres, like the backside of the lake. Only one house can be built out there on the property because no one can get water hookup. Whereas if the water line was not out there, then they could subdivide that property.
So one of the things, and it's naivete, but when I drive down and see a bunch of dead service stations all over town, I wonder, as a city, can we do anything about all the dead and failed carcasses that are going through town? And is that an appropriate thing for urban renewal to even address?
It absolutely is. And thank you for bringing that out so that I can pat myself on the back. Because that's what the glass center was. That was a contaminated site, and the agency paid to have that cleaned up and monitored.
Well, which is, by the way, to give you another pat on the back, it is working extraordinarily well. It would really hurt the economy of town if that were to disappear. it's an attraction on quite a few besides the one today.
But it is one of the areas that Allison is especially interested in and has done some checking about, how many sites are there here and what kinds of things can be done, and providing letters to property owners to see what their level of interest is. Do you have anything to throw out about that?
It's actually also on the economic development tool list. So if there was an interest in doing some loans or grants to those particular properties, I mean, there's lots of opportunity to, and there's federal money through the brownfield program that can be used at different phases of seeing if there's contamination and stuff like that. So.
And then I think the biggest one that's happened most recently was the Google site.
Yeah.
They were able to buy that and do the remediation that's necessary in order to contain it. Tanger was another one. The county shops were on where the Tanger parking structure is. And they went through and they burned all of the soil on that site. And then put it back in the ground.
I guess the question, looking back on the general fund, when I look at our construction fund, it shows me, so I want to make sure the projects you've got listed here, absent the Sal C pump stations, just barely can be funded with what we've got available and coming in, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, give or take 200,000. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the general fund then and anticipate our movement now of redeveloping or selling properties, mm-hmm. You've got some funds in here. These funds aren't reflected over into the construction availability, but could be.
They could be.
So I guess where I'm going to, it's nice to have ideas, and I wonder, you've got a whole list of past dreams that people had. Again, a motive to sell the properties, replenish our cash, and then go after the gas stations, for example. Would that be the process? Is there any kind of hoops that would have to be jumped? If we could get repaid some of our properties purchased, the Nell Scott retail space, could we not go after some of the gas stations and theoretically buy those and get them in a better shape to keep rolling?
We could. There's the uncertainty of what you have to work, what the
when you
cost,
buy gas
what the
stations.
cost is going to be. So you have that. If you were going to do that, you could do it out of either fund, actually, because you can. When we make this borrowing on this sheet, that we will say this money is for these purposes. And that's the only thing most money is going to be used for. And it can't be used for administration. It can't be used for personnel, materials, and services, that sort of thing. And so you could say it is going to help refund the loan program. So you could do that as one choice. On the purple sheet, on our general fund, the money from this fund can go into this fund, into the construction fund, but not the other way around, because you can't fund these things. And that's why you don't see any projects anymore here, because we are now bonding instead of using the funding that's coming in and doing projects. We now have to go out and bond for it and pay it off like a car. And so we can't commingle the funds, and so Ron Tierney has set up these two different funds. And so in this fund, when we sell property, we can use it for all the things that are on this sheet, but we can't use these funds for things on other sheets. So yes, it's possible.
So I guess I'm not accounting savvy. You have property acquisition and construction.
Property acquisition.
This is L and RCA.
Yes.
How does that equate to a construction project?
It was just where Ron put the funding for purchasing the Elks building in when we didn't have the money in this fund to do it. And so when he did the previous bonding a year ago, in that bond, that was one of the projects that he listed as the purchase of that property. And so that's why it's in this fund.
Under bond?
Well, just under one of the projects. From bond.
From bond.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the $5,000 for the RCH parcel, which parcel?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in the executive session.
Okay. And if I may, with the list of ideas here. In the first column, about 3/4 of the way down, Scott Plaza walkway parking.
Yeah.
Scott Plaza is in Nelscott, right?
Correct.
And we would create another sidewalk to the parking lot at the south end?
Actually, the thing that was envisioned would be like an elevated walkway, bridge.
In the wetlands?
That would go across all that wetland property to the parking lot. A couple of things, not only would it be kind of an interesting feature, but people might be more willing to use the restroom, the public restroom there, than if the bridge would say, go down the end of the street, turn left, walk down a half a block, and go instead of, take the cool bridge
right
over to the parking lot.
And how about the Southwest Keel Avenue construction crew?
And that is, when we put in the sewer line last year in Cutler City, behind Roby's, that's Keel Street. There is public right-of-way there that we put that in. And there has been talk about opening that to be a street, even if it was a one-way street. ProBuild has expressed an interest in it, and both Roby's also they get trucks in there, and there'd be a good staging area. It would be a good area for people to walk through there. Right now, if we just put barricades there so people can't use it. Right. But there had been talk about using it in the future.
And under partnership projects, we've got the Bama Downtown Manager. What's the current status on that, Kurt?
We are kind of waiting for the new leadership of Bama to sort of settle in and then get back to us and see what level of interest they have so that we can talk. I think most of the people on the new leadership are people that we haven't had an opportunity to work with yet. And so we haven't met and talked about what our vision was for that funding, and they haven't talked to us about their vision, and we want to make sure they're not going in separate directions before we provide that funding. But we still haven't.
And the Eagles parking lot improvements, are we committed to that somehow?
No, we're not. That is a project that was talked about over a number of years before even the Nelscott project even was kind of almost thought about. We needed more parking in the Nelscott area. So there were two things that we talked about. We talked, first of all, to the Theater West group. They have a lot next to their building. And we said, hey, if you'll let us build a parking lot there and sign it as a public parking lot, we will pay for it. And they said, no, that doesn't work for them because that's where they want to build their new building. So that didn't work. So then we went to the Eagles and we said the same thing. We said, you have a parking lot there, but if you will allow us to pave it for you, put in the landscaping, and sign it as a public parking lot for whatever hours we go to work, that we would do that. And so they're still considering that.
Okay.
And that was always one of our concessions to the ODOT project that was always talked about that we would do that. And they may indeed be open to it. We're continuing to talk to them about it. It seemed like a good fit, especially if the business owners in the Nelscott Strip would park their employee cars there. And instead of, it wouldn't necessarily be open to the public, but the people that get off work at 5 o'clock, that works great for the Eagles. And they realize there's still going to be conflicts of people parking there and spending the night, leaving their car there overnight. Right. But, we're just seeing and we've just always said to them, well, if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Okay. If it works for you, it's an offer that we're throwing out there.
Okay. And under attractors, what is a rain walk?
That is something that we've talked about over the years. trying to find a street where all of the businesses or even the houses would do something that embrace the rain. For example, things that wouldn't move. So water would come down your downspout, and then something would twirl, or a noise would be made. And so as you walk down the street, like each house would sort of compete to how cool they can deal with the rain. Being that when it's rainy here, and people go, it's raining, what's there to do? Well, rain's not going to go down to the first street. And take a walk, it's really cool. I mean, those are the kind of things that we felt like are Sunset Magazine kinds of things, right? And there isn't a ton of expense, or virtually none, for the city other than Kurt's pet project of creating a bench that you can sit on, and when it's not raining, you can push a lever and it will rain on it. Now that would be a Sunset Magazine.
And
we had too much coffee.
Still under our tractors, Councilor Anderson, do you know the status of the dog park?
There's still a group that has a nonprofit that has raised some money. As a city, we've, as you perhaps don't remember, we called out the dog park as a possibility use in villages, as an interim use, as well as in the Taft old school that was torn down and we purchased the property on. So there's two places there. In my opinion, there's no organization behind this group at the moment.
Thank you. And one more, please, under economic development. City economic development position 18%. What does that refer to, Kurt?
The Urban Renewal Agency can only fund projects that support the Urban Renewal District. So if it was a citywide project, it supports the district, but it also supports the city. So, for example, if we wanted to build a new police station, that's a city project. But if we wanted to build a substation in Color City, we could build that. So the proportionality comes into play where the Urban Renewal Agency is 18% of the city by I think it's by acreage. Yeah, it's by acreage. Urban Renewal District is 18% of the city. So through proportionality, if, for example, the city decided we need to hire an economic development director, that position, the Urban Renewal Agency could do a finding that could show that we could support that position up to 18% of the cost.
Right. Thank you.
But could Urban Renewal support 18% of the construction of a new police station?
I think there are findings that could show that, yes. That you could make findings that could show that.
Even though it's outside the district?
Well, that might be the difficult part. However, it certainly supports the district.
Yeah, that's true.
Are we going to talk about the D-Lake School? I was just talking about that.
I would welcome some discussion. I mean, it's going to make it a little easier for us to do the budget if we know how some. But with all due respect to the cultural center, I believe they want to make a presentation next month about their annual report and then a discussion of that.
So that would be the time to have that discussion.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to preempt. I mean, you can't make a real decision. You can certainly discuss it amongst yourselves, but you wouldn't make any voting or make a decision in that regard. But I wanted to make sure that you knew it was coming so that you have plenty of time to think about it, so you're going to call it guard and have to take a step.
Before that presentation is made, is it possible for you to present us with some history regarding that project?
Okay, so regarding history of the project of the school,
Status,
background,
history.
Okay. Because you'll also see, and there's, I think it's on the purple sheet near the bottom, as one of our expenses is $20,000 across the board. That's easily what we're spending annually in maintenance.
In addition, giving that 30,000. The dock at most.
Yes.
It's not here under the tractors. Is that none of your business, or is that?
I'd love to see something happen with the dock. I'm just not exactly sure how to address it because it not only falls outside the district, it falls outside the city. So, I mean, we can fund the walkway out there, but all the maps I've ever seen show it not being in the city.
Or it belongs to the city.
That could be, and the city's more than welcome to do something, but I don't know what the agency can do.
Madam Chair, I think Lila can address that. We are going to be discussing this during our budget process, so she can address this.
Yes, we've had, some more damage to it during that last storm, and then we had damage before that too. So we have a quote right now from a local contractor, and it's about $92,000 to repair it. And then we also wanted to resurface and make it an ADA and just make it more of an attraction and essentially just save it. There's a lot of piers that need help and a lot of rejuvenation, but we're looking. I'll probably put $100,000 toward that, and then there's also some maintenance for those types of structures that you can get a grant every year for maintenance of $20,000. So we're looking at that as well.
Within that, Lila, are you allowed to accept private donations? So if we did fundraisers for the dock,
I'm sure that.
Is there a way to get that money to you to help pay for it?
I'm sure that could be a possibility.
I think we have a stake in that.
And we have our ADA transition plan. It's in there for ADA issues because even the path going out, it's not ADA. The ramp part of it's not ADA, and then of course the flat structure. And so we were trying to look at shoring it up underneath and getting it low.
And in that repair, I don't think I'll just take too much time. Is there a way? Is there talk about ways to protect that for future days, so that when the dogs wash in, that they'll be buffered? They won't smack straight into it.
I don't know if we can do that. That's kind of a Mother Nature thing. We did go out.
Really, you can build braces and things that deflect.
That's
get the Army Corps.
That's going to be the DSL.
Well, that's true too.
DSL permitting, and so we could ask.
Okay.
We can certainly look at that. In the meantime, we cut the logs and let the tide take them back out. Okay.
Well, thank you for the trash can updates. I really hate those things. My passion. I think they look like one or two bunkers. Which maybe we could use again. Put them out on the beach and have them really charged.
Well, if you allow us to continue to do some of those projects throughout the rest of the life of Renewal, then there will still be funding for those types of. Because those are expensive projects when you compare to an underground project or pump station project. You do a lot of projects for a pump station.
And you have Kids Park Cutler restroom, and I know that we've had some discussion recently about restrooms and having to shut them down and the like. Do we have any more restrooms planned? Do we have a plan for securing them somehow? Are there any upgrades that would help us in that?
I bet Violet that's always been the problem. Urban Renewal, we can build most anything, but Violet and her crew have to maintain it and deal with it. And find someone to do all that work. So.
We have the 17, and so we actually initiated a program because we're having so much vandalism about our restrooms, and so we're closing them at a certain time of night, and that's saving us much added work as far as having to be.
So do we have plans for any more being built in the city?
No, other than that's the only one that's on that list, and that was the discussion because it's Kids Park, and that's the name of it. It's Kids Park and Seniors too, and it's quite a ways to Josephine Young, and so there was some talk during the Cutler City community visioning of, gosh, what would it take to put just some sort of small restroom there, and it wouldn't have to be, it just had to be something simple or something small, but it's going to have to be bulletproof. You know,
I remember when Dave was first elected mayor, and you brought that up, that, you know, it is an important part of the tourist visit and experience to be able to take your kids to the restaurant and wash their feet and all that. And I want to make sure that just because it's getting vandalized, we're not taking care of it, we're not opening it up to our guests.
Well, that's why it doesn't raise to the level for the funding that we had available and projects that we've worked on so far. That's why that one hasn't risen to the top. It's just because of our sensitivity to the Public Works and Parks Department of not having funding and manpower to take on even more. So.
And there are some new options. You know, they have the Portland Blue type restrooms that, you know, most of those are like a steel structure, but they're less maintenance, and you know, they can't be slept in or vandalized quite as easy. And so maybe in some of these smaller locations we could do that, because on Mast off of Northwest Jetty, you know, there's no restroom there. It's a Wacoma pump station. It's quite a long ways from the beach, so we get requests for porta potty to be there during the summer months, and we put one there because it's a long ways for people to go.
Well, yeah, I was out on 101 last night. I'll try to not get graphic as it possibly be, but the fellow was out in the Ocean Lake. There wasn't a single business open. There was no restaurant open. He's just out there himself with a trash can, and that was it for as an option. And I don't know if that's the direction we want to go.
Yeah, and
whether you need to build into your budget some more time for people, you know, overseeing it, or the police or somebody.
And we're working on that right now. And so that's actually going to be happening. We're closing them a little bit early. And so as the ordinance states, we're going to have them open until 10 o'clock at night, and then we'll have someone closing them. Not between 9 and 10. It takes an hour to close them.
Right.
And this.
Did you get have we gotten a handle yet on defecation problem that we had?
Yes.
Is that abated?
Yes.
Was it one individual or
No,
is it just one?
No, because it's all over town. You know, it would go from 15th Street to 50th Street to 51st Street. And really in Taft, we have quite a few restrooms, you know. In the Taft area, we have the gazebo, then we have Moe's, and then we have 50th Street. And so in a small area, that's quite a few public restrooms.
So how did you get it taken care of?
We started locking them up in the evening. And now with the change in the season, we'll be locking them much later, but it has made all the difference. So it's just trying to sleep in them at night and vandalize them. So we've made some really good headway.
I don't know that we've taken care of the problem. Would be it's a human problem. You know, some would say it's the human behind the gun. It's not the gun. This is the human behind the mess. I think we've taken care of ourselves by locking it, but the defecation still goes on on private property and public.
That becomes kind of an enforcement issue.
Right, and that's what's picking up now. It's been pushed into the police.
And really, we haven't. We're still taking care of the restrooms within parks. So we're not asking the police to manage them.
I'm hearing we've still got a problem. Private business.
Private properties.
So just to flip back, Kurt, I'm curious, how many, going back to the loan programs and facades, $150,000 comes back a year once we're fully funded, and that should be this year. So 2 loans, you know, is 2 loans going to take care of, you know, our current demand? And are we, in essence, missing an uptick? I mean, the economy's rebounding. We had a lot of money when people didn't need it or want it or be able to afford to repay. And now that we're rebounding, we don't seem to have the money when people might be even more in a mood just quickly, yeah. Is this on the agenda, then saying some of our funding could be allocated towards this?
If I was to be asked to make a recommendation, I would think that I would suggest we try to find some funding to add to that program, because if we're taking a new look at economic development and how the agency or how the city goes at it, gosh, these are the programs we continue to point to as being successful. And I think that I think it would be nice to be able to fund them. Whether or not $150,000 would do it, that sounds like in the past, that's probably about right, a couple a year. But maybe more like three or four a year would be kind of more of an average from the past, I would think. Now that we have kind of a new, we're talking about it more, it would be great.
So am I, and again, I'm confused, I want to make sure I'm reading the chart right. If I looked at the green sheet, and hypothetically, we already circled, why design the LLC pump station or main force. There's $210,000. Could that theoretically, even though you have it out there in 17-18, are those funds available where it can be allocated to the loan fund now? I mean, now being the next budget cycle.
Yeah. So that's an easy answer. So no. The theoretical answer is that after the 2017-18 bond sale, it could, because we can put it in the bond sale that the funding would go to the loan program.
So prior to the new bond sale, there isn't any funding available, even switching projects around to allocate this next budget cycle coming up.
Well, there may be. I asked Ron Tierney wasn't able to make it tonight, but I asked him that question. So there's two things that can come out of the general fund, like you suggested, from property sales. Maybe it could be refunded through that, and it would come back obviously in the payments. The rent income from Healy School, that funding could go into good. And then we could do what we have been doing in the past called the do work funding, where we borrow for a day and then pay it back, and then that money then is no longer bond proceeds. So I'd have to talk to Ron to see. So we can certainly do that after 2017 bond sale. And I'll have to ask him if there was funding available in here, for example, like you said, well, still nothing. I just don't see it before the 2017 bond sale.
I would just think we might be missing an opportunity for someone to speak the point there.
And so, just so clear, you did say construction cannot go to general, and general can go to construction.
That's correct. One other thing that I didn't talk to Ron about, but I don't know why it couldn't happen, is that in anticipation of being able to do that 2 years from now, perhaps the agency could borrow from the city funding and pay them back.
And then on that topic, do you have a sense, Kurt, of whether these improvements would happen if we didn't have the loan program? Would it have happened anyway? Would they said, I'm going to borrow the money?
I don't know how you would ever determine that.
I guess just in general conversations. They would have said, hey, I was going to go get it, but you got a better deal, so I'm going to do it. I mean, that would be something that would indicate to me it wasn't entirely needed.
I think what we hear more often is, oh, we just decided to use our own money. Than to say, hey, I was going to do this, but boy, this is even a better deal. Maybe I've heard that a couple times, but we tend to hear more that, I just didn't have time to get around to it and fill out the paperwork and so.
I think also people are more interested in bundling their projects with the loan program, whereas if they use their own money, they would do more phasing. So I think that this has a little more, people get excited about the loan and the opportunity to borrow the money and pay it over time. So they're more willing to upfront immediately do a bundle of those improvements. So we see more of an impact.
The one thing that we would always hope, obviously, was that the worst buildings in town would have gotten a facade. And what we really found out was that people that own the most buildings in town understood the value of money. $75,000 at zero interest for 10 years is a $30,000 gift, or it was when the interest rates were higher. So the people that understand the value of money are the people that used it the most, which is fine. If they got a building, all those buildings got upgraded and look great compared to what they've done in your office.
So that's why we funded small business development scholarships classes, so more people could figure out the value of money.
That's really valuable.
It's 5 o'clock. We've got an executive session. Any other comments?
Do you have what you need,
I
Chris?
think I have a lot of what I need. I think we can talk about some of the details during budgeting. Do you have the questions you have? Okay. I think Lila's comments about maybe being able to free up the design money is going to help a lot. That will give us some more breathing room in there. And I haven't heard anything about not doing any of those other projects, including some of these on the list. So we'll just keep moving forward. And then we'll see what we can do to refund the loan credit. It sounds like there's some interest in that. And you'll be able to have that information during the budget committee and either say yea or nay, or we'll provide some options about how that might happen. Okay? Thanks, everybody. That was great.
All right, so we'll adjourn and reconvene in the executive session down the hall in about 5 minutes.
Great. And is that our point on? Yes. Okay.
What is